looking for a new studio for about 4 or 5 months, and I wasn't finding anything that was really going to work for me. I didn't want to be in a multi-artist environment because based on my experience, that was just like too noisy and a no-go for me because I'm an artist that really needs some quiet so I can get into my zone once I start working. So when I found the studio, first of all, it had both a passenger and a freight elevator, which I needed for load in and load out. When I got up to the studio, I just about started crying because I went, oh my God, north facing windows, perfect for an artist. And then on the south end of my studio, I have a sunlight. And I never turn on my electricity when I'm in the studio, the lights, because I like working from natural light. So it was just the ideal environment for me.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your work and your process? Maybe what first drew you to the medium, and yeah, just how you started painting.
Okay. Well, I've been painting ever since I could hold something in my little paws. My dad was a commercial artist, so I grew up in an artistic family, and that was my inclination from when I was a toddler. In fact, on my website page, on the page about me, I talk about how my mom would have to check the pockets before she would do laundry because they were crammed with crayons and paintbrushes and just all kinds of stuff, whatever I could cram into my pockets. Over the years, I've worked in many different mediums, just about everything, actually. Oil paint, acrylic, watercolor. I've done some printmaking, not a lot, but I always have gone back to oil. And about 8 years ago, I had bought a can of the Gamlin Cold Wax Medium, not really knowing what I was going to do with it. And I stuck it in a closet, and I finally dug it out. And I found some people that I could study with that had already been working in the oil and cold wax. And once that combination of the cold wax with the oil came into my repertoire, it was just like, I just loved it. I've been working with it for about 8 years. It really speaks to my process of building layers or building paintings layer upon layer, and it's very versatile. I can, depending on the mediums I use, in addition to the cold wax, I can make it very thin, or else I can add plaster dust and really for more texture. So it just works for me. I just love it. And I'm always finding two new techniques and new ways of working with it.
Great. So speaking about your imagination, do you want to go through maybe some of your works in progress, kind of talk through them?
This painting, I grew up in Chicago. And I've always lived very close to the lake. In fact, in the summertime, I'm never in a studio, I'm at the beach. I'm a total beach girl. And over the years, I've been totally mesmerized by all the different moods and the tones and the color and the light and the texture of Lake Michigan. It just has always amazed me how quickly it can change, not only from hour to hour, but certainly from day to day. Photography is my second love, and I decided one summer that I was going to commit the summer to a photo project. I only live about 4 blocks from the lake, and so I would bust out of bed before dawn came up, the sun rose, run down to the lakefront with my camera and get my tripod set up, and I would start shooting until the light became too harsh, and then I would stop. Over the course of the summer, I probably accumulated like maybe 1,500 images. And several years ago, I culled all those images down to maybe 8 or 12. And a friend of mine wrote haiku for each of the images. And I called the series Morning Meditations. And so when I went to paint this painting, this wasn't really based on any one particular image that I had shot, but it was simply, again, one of my impressions of Lake Michigan. And even though, and this is an example where I could really thin down the paint, and I actually used, I'll step out of the frame, this, in addition to the tools, which are my main tools, is like a silicone bowl scraper, where you mix the paint up on my palette with the medium, and then use this to sweep it onto your canvas or paper. For sometimes I will roll on a bale of color and I'll put tissue paper on top and lift it off so I get a very thin glaze-like layer. On this particular painting, when I got up into the sky, I didn't want any marks at all. So I resorted to using my very soft bristled Japanese brushes to paint the sky. When I was working on this, it's actually about 17 or 18 layers of paint, although it doesn't appear to be that, because it were very, very thin glazers. And there was, at one point, I worked flat, but I would have to keep elevating the painting onto my easel to see how I was progressing. And what my glazes were so thin that about a half an hour later, I was getting ready to leave the studio, and I realized it was dripping. So I had to quick take it off the easel and lay it flat and then brush it out.
Okay, so what part of the process of creating, finishing a painting from start to finish is the most challenging, and what part is the most rewarding, would you say?
Because I don't paint from reference material, I'm painting from my imagination. I don't have a roadmap as a place to go or that shows me the finish line, so to speak. And there are times where my paintings challenge for me and I hit kind of a roadblock. And I refer to those paintings as my problem children. So I work in multiple paintings at once, so I have several going. And so if I hit a roadblock with one, I will kind of let it sit there until the answer comes, and then I'll just move on to another one. And ultimately, when all is said and done, my problem children become my favorite paintings.
Perfect. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit of why you like exhibiting and what it feels like to, exhibit your work in a show?
I prefer exhibiting my work in shows where I can actually be there. There are plenty of shows where you submit a work of art, but you're not able to actually meet the people that are viewing your work and hopefully buying it and taking it home with them. And that's why I love doing a show like One of a Kind. I get to tell the people about my work, my inspiration. I get to share the stories. I have a lot of stories that go behind a lot of my paintings, and I love sharing those and just meeting them. It's just so thrilling. And in addition to watching their reactions to my work, as well as their interpretation of my work. There's a woman that came to one of my shows. She's a collector of mine. And she had zeroed in on a couple of paintings, and she started talking about what she saw in one of them. And it was a fairly long narrative. And I was like looking and listening to that. I'm looking at her and I'm looking at what she's seeing. And I realized that I would forever see that painting through her eyes. She ultimately bought it, so it's in her home now. But that's it. I have many examples. It's great. I just love it. It's really rigorous. It's a lot of work. People have no idea. I think probably 40% of my time is spent painting and the rest is preparing for a show.